Marcus Chen stared out the window of his penthouse office, watching autonomous delivery drones buzz between Shanghai's gleaming skyscrapers. The latest stop report scrolled across his retinal display. Chen Technologies up another 12%. He dismissed it with a blink. Success, he was discovering, could be terribly boring. "Sir," his AI assistant's voice chimed, "you've received an invitation to the Andromeda Exchange." Marcus sat up straighter. The Andromeda Exchange was legendary among Earth's ultra-wealthy, an exclusive auction house dealing in exotic alien artifacts and technologies. Most considered it an urban legend. "Display," he commanded. The invitation materialized in his field of view, glowing with subtle iridescence. "Join us for our centennial auction. Items of unprecedented significance available to qualified buyers." A string of coordinates followed, along with an astronomical credit requirement that even Marcus had to whistle at. 3 days later, Marcus's private shuttle dropped out of FTL on the edge of disputed space. A massive structure floated before him, its architecture clearly non-human. Crystalline spires twisted impossibly, housing what appeared to be miniature galaxies. "Welcome to the exchange," a melodious voice greeted as he docked. His escort was a tall, graceful being with opalescent skin and too many fingers. "I am Serenine, your personal concierge." The auction floor defied physics. Platforms floated at various angles, each displaying items that challenged Marcus's understanding of reality. A captured solar flare danced in a containment field. A device promised to let its user experience every possible version of themselves. A crown that allegedly granted perfect memory sat on a cushion of pure darkness. "Lot 447, the auctioneer announced, a Class 5 habitable world in the Nexus sector. Uninhabited, rich in rare minerals, and featuring a unique crystalline-based ecosystem. Opening bid, 500 billion credits." Marcus barely registered the price. His attention was caught by the holographic display of the planet. Unlike the sterile beauty of most uninhabited worlds, this one pulsed with life. Crystalline formations created natural architecture that put human cities to shame. Lakes of what appeared to be liquid light dotted the surface. The atmosphere shimmered with aurora-like phenomena. "Magnificent, isn't it?" A voice purred beside him. Marcus turned to find a being that appeared to be made of living mercury, though perhaps more than a human could handle. Something in the creature's tone sparked Marcus's competitive streak. Without fully processing the consequences, he raised his bidder's token. 500 billion from the human gentleman, the auctioneer acknowledged. "Do I hear 550? The mercury being smiled, or at least its surface rippled in what Marcus interpreted as amusement. 550. Marcus's childhood on Earth's crowded streets surfaced in his memory. People had always underestimated him. 600. The price climbed. Other bidders dropped out, leaving only Marcus and the mercury being. At 900 billion, his opponent finally bowed out with a metallic chuckle. "It's yours, human. Do try not to break it." "Sold," the auctioneer declared. "Congratulations, Mr. Chen. You are now the owner of Nexus 7. Reality crashed back in. He'd just spent nearly 1 trillion credits on an impulse buy. His board would have collective heart attacks. Then again, he owned the board. As Marcus completed the transaction, Serenine approached with a data crystal. "Your property deed, sir. And the additional documentation." Additional. The responsibility protocols, citizenship requirements, and of course, the defense obligations. Marcus frowned. Defense obligations. "I thought the planet was uninhabited." Serenine's expression shifted subtly. "The planet's primary species is difficult to detect through conventional scans. They exist in a semi-crystalline state that integrates with the planet's natural formations. The Nexans are highly advanced, but traditionally isolationist. They agree to this sale as a means of finally engaging with the wider galaxy." Marcus felt a headache building. "Are you telling me I just bought an inhabited planet?" More precisely, you've purchased the role of planetary protector and cultural liaison. The Nexans require an outsider to represent their interests in galactic affairs, but their unique physical nature makes it challenging for them to do so directly. Marcus collapsed into a nearby chair, which helpfully adjusted to his physiology. I'm not a diplomat. I'm barely a responsible adult. Perhaps Serenine agreed, but you are now the legal guardian of one of the most sophisticated civilizations in known space. The Nexans specifically requested a human representative. They find our species, adaptability, intriguing. As Marcus processed this information, his entrepreneurial mind began spinning possibilities. An advanced civilization seeking contact with the galaxy, but needing a human intermediary. The potential was staggering. When can I meet them? He asked. They're already here, Serenine replied, gesturing to the crystalline architecture around them. The exchange was built by Nexan architects. In fact, you've been observed throughout the auction. They wanted to see how you'd handle the competition. The Mercury being materialized beside them, its form shifting to reveal complex crystalline patterns beneath the metallic surface. And you performed admirably, Marcus Chen. I am Clara, Chief Assessor of Nexan Potential. Welcome to your new role and your new family. Marcus stared at his reflection in Clara's surface, seeing not the bored billionaire of an hour ago, but something new, a human caught between worlds, about to embark on an adventure beyond imagination. He'd wanted to escape his mundane success. Be careful what you wish for, indeed. Well, he said, straightening his jacket, I suppose we should discuss my new job description. The crystalline structures around them pulsed with light, and Marcus could have sworn he heard distant laughter. His life as Earth's most successful recluse was over. His life as an accidental ambassador to an alien civilization was just beginning. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered, this is going to make one hell of a story. Marcus's personal starship, the Fortune's Folly, dropped out of hyperspace above Nexus 7. The planet glowed like a jewel against the void, its crystalline surface refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Streams of what appeared to be liquid light wound through the crystal formations, creating a natural circuit board visible from orbit. Preliminary scans complete, his ship's AI announced. Atmosphere compatible with human life. Temperature ranges within acceptable parameters. However, unusual energy signatures detected across the entire surface. Those would be my new constituents, Marcus muttered, still struggling with the concept. The past week had been a crash course in Nexan culture and biology. A civilization of crystalline beings who existed in a quantum state between matter and energy, capable of integrating with their environment so completely they appeared to be part of the planet itself. As the Fortune's Folly began its descent, Marcus reviewed the welcome package Clara had provided. The Nexans had achieved technological mastery centuries ago, but had chosen to evolve alongside their technology rather than separate from it. Their cities weren't built, they were grown. Their computers weren't manufactured, they were cultivated. The ship touched down in a designated landing zone that looked like a flower made of crystal and light. As the airlock cycled, Marcus took a deep breath. Well, no backing out now. He stepped onto the surface of his new world and immediately felt a subtle vibration through his boots. The crystal beneath his feet pulsed with soft light, spreading outward in concentric circles. A greeting, he realized, remembering his briefing. The planet itself was acknowledging his presence. Welcome, Guardian Chen. A chorus of voices echoed around him. From the crystalline structures, forms began to emerge. The Nexans in their natural state were breathtaking, humanoid shapes composed of living crystal and flowing light, each unique in their pattern and coloration. A familiar Mercury-like form separated from the group. Clara, Marcus smiled, relieved to see a somewhat familiar face. I didn't expect a welcoming committee. This is hardly a simple welcome. Clara's surface rippled with concern. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. Before Marcus could respond, another figure materialized. This one a deep red crystal formation that somehow managed to convey barely contained anger. This is what we've been reduced to, seeking help from a primitive organic. Mind your tone, Vextor, Clara warned. Guardian Chen is now our legal representative to the galaxy. A position we never should have created. Vextor's crystalline form pulsed with crimson energy. We survived the Great Collapse without outside help. We endured the quantum wars in isolation. Now we surrender our sovereignty to a being who doesn't even understand basic dimensional shifting. Marcus stepped forward, drawing on years of corporate negotiations. I may not understand dimensional shifting, but I do understand protection and progress. Your people sought this arrangement for a reason. Our people, a new voice chimed in, its owner a delicate formation of blue-white crystal, are divided on this matter, Guardian. I am Syria, head of the Progressive Council. We believe isolation has become stagnation. Others, like Vexitor, fear change will bring destruction. Marcus absorbed this information, his mind already formulating strategies. Then let me prove my worth. Show me your greatest challenges. Let me demonstrate how human innovation can complement Nexan wisdom. A ripple of light passed through the assembled Nexans, their equivalent of murmuring. Syria moved closer, her crystalline form casting prismatic patterns across Marcus's suit. Very well. Our first challenge is one of energy. The crystal heart of our world is failing. Sharing our weaknesses already? Vextor scoffed. The crystal heart, Clara explained, ignoring the outburst, powers everything on Nexus 7. It's been stable for millennia, but recent fluctuations threaten our entire civilization. Marcus nodded slowly. Show me. The journey to the crystal heart was unlike anything in human experience. The Nexans shifted through their crystalline environment, guiding Marcus through passages that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber that defied physics. The crystal heart hung suspended in the center, a massive formation of pure energy contained within crystalline lattices. But Marcus could see the problem immediately. The energy flows were erratic, the crystals showing signs of stress. We've tried everything in our understanding, Syria explained, but perhaps we need a new perspective. Marcus approached the heart, his mind racing. The patterns of energy flow reminded him of something. This is like a quantum processor, he realized. The energy isn't failing, it's facing a processing bottleneck. He pulled out his portable computer, scanning the formation. Look here, the crystal matrix is trying to process too much data simultaneously. On Earth, we solved similar problems in our quantum computers by implementing parallel processing architecture. Impossible, Vextor declared. The heart predates your species' mastery of fire. Age doesn't mean perfection, Marcus countered. Sometimes the oldest systems need new solutions. He turned to Clara. If I'm reading these patterns correctly, we could create subsidiary nodes to share the processing load. Not replacing the heart, but supporting it, like a circulatory system. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Syria spoke. It could work, but the implementation would require unprecedented cooperation between Nexans and human technology. Good, Marcus smiled, because that's exactly why I'm here. He turned to face the assembled Nexans, his voice firm. I may not understand everything about your world yet, but I understand adaptation. Humans survived and thrived because we never stopped learning, never stopped growing. Let me help you do the same. The crystal heart pulsed behind him, its light seeming to strengthen. Vextor's form shimmered with reluctant consideration. Clara and Syria exchanged what Marcus interpreted as hopeful glances. Perhaps, Clara said softly, this arrangement will work after all. As discussions began about implementing his solution, Marcus gazed at the crystal heart. He'd come to this world on a whim, but standing here, watching ancient alien technology pulse in harmony with his simple human insights, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Purpose. The crystal heart's light danced across his face, and Marcus Chen, billionaire, accidental guardian, and now potential savior of an alien civilization, smiled. This was just the beginning. 2 months into his role as guardian, Marcus lounged in his newly constructed interface chamber, a marvel of human comfort merged with Nexan crystalline architecture. Holographic displays showed the progress of the Crystal Heart Stabilization Project. His solution was working, but it had revealed deeper problems. Guardian Chen, Syria's voice chimed as her crystalline form materialized. "We have a situation in the southern quadrant." Marcus straightened. He'd learned that Syria never brought minor concerns. What kind of situation? Energy anomalies, similar to the Crystal Heart's symptoms, but deliberate. Her form flickered with concern. "We believe someone is attempting to sabotage the subsidiary nodes." "Vextor," Marcus growled. The traditionalist leader had been suspiciously quiet lately. "We lack proof," Clara added, appearing beside Syria. "But the pattern suggests insider knowledge." Marcus pulled up a detailed map of Nexus 7's energy grid. The new system he'd helped implement was a thing of beauty, human ingenuity married to Nexan technology. Subsidiary nodes pulsed with shared energy loads, taking pressure off the Crystal Heart. But now, red warnings flashed across several sectors. "Show me the affected nodes," he commanded. The map zoomed in, revealing a pattern that made his blood run cold. "This isn't random sabotage. They're creating a cascade failure." "Explain," Clara urged. Marcus's fingers danced through the holographic display. "See these connection points. If these nodes fail in sequence, it won't just disable the new system. The power surge could overload the Crystal Heart itself." "Impossible," Syria's form pulsed with alarm. "That would mean the end of Nexan civilization," Clara finished grimly. Marcus was already moving. "I need access to your quantum communication network, and get me everything you have on Nexan digital signatures." Hours later, Marcus sat surrounded by streams of data. He'd learned more about Nexan technology in the past day than in all his previous weeks. Their quantum signatures were like fingerprints, unique patterns of energy that identified individual Nexans. "Got you," he muttered, isolating a recurring pattern in the sabotaged nodes. "But it's not Vexator." "Then who?" Syria asked, her form shimmering with anticipation. Before Marcus could answer, the chamber's crystals pulsed with urgent energy. "Alert," a Nexan operator announced. "Unknown vessels entering orbit. Energy signatures match no known civilization." Marcus rushed to the observation interface. Multiple ships hung in Nexus 7's sky, their design unlike anything in galactic records. As he watched, more emerged from hyperspace. "Impossible," Clara whispered. "The quantum raiders, they were destroyed centuries ago." "Evidently not," Marcus replied grimly. "And I bet they're connected to our saboteur." A transmission cut through all channels. The figure that appeared was neither human nor Nexan, a being of dark energy contained within ancient crystal armor. "People of Nexus 7, it spoke in a voice that seemed to echo through time itself. We have returned to claim what was rightfully ours. Your Crystal Heart will fuel our resurrection." The quantum raiders were crystal energy vampires, Syria explained quickly. "They consumed the power of entire civilizations. We thought we defeated them in the quantum wars." "They didn't just survive," Marcus realized, pulling up the sabotage data. "They had help. These energy signatures, they're hybrid. Part Nexan, part something else. Someone's been working with them." The chamber doors crystallized, seething shut. "Very good, Guardian," a familiar voice said. Marcus turned to find Vexator, but the traditionalist leader's form had changed. Dark energy swirled within his crystal structure. "You," Marcus breathed. "But why? You claim to protect Nexan tradition." "I protect our future," Vexator replied. "The raiders offered us power beyond imagination. Why should we hide our greatness? With their help, we could rule the galaxy." by becoming parasites. Marcus challenged. That's not protection, it's surrender. Vextor's form pulsed with dark energy. The Raiders will restore our true destiny, and you, Guardian, will witness our ascension. But Marcus was smiling. While Vextor monologued, he'd been busy. His fingers danced across hidden controls, implementing a plan he'd hoped he'd never need. Funny thing about human technology, he said conversationally. We're really good at building backdoors. He pressed a final command. Throughout the chamber, crystals began to pulse with new energy. What are you doing? Vextor demanded, his form flickering. Remember those subsidiary nodes you tried to sabotage? I built them with a special feature. Right now, they're not just processing energy, they're broadcasting a signal. Your Raider friends up there, they're about to have a very bad day. On cue, explosions lit up the sky. The Raider ships began to break apart, their dark energy containment failing. Quantum encryption, Marcus explained to the stunned Nexans. Turns out your ancient enemies never updated their security protocols. And you, Vextor, just gave us their exact frequency. Kalara and Syria moved swiftly, their combined energy forming a containment field around the traitor. Vextor raged, but the dark energy within him had already begun to dissipate. Guardian Chen, Syria's voice held new respect. You prepare for this possibility. Marcus shrugged. Rule 1 of business. Always have a contingency plan. I figured anyone desperate enough to oppose progress might be desperate enough to seek outside help. As security forces secured Vextor and cleanup crews handled the Raider debris, Marcus gazed out at his adopted world. The crystal heart pulsed stronger than ever, its energy pure and untainted. Perhaps, Clara said softly, this is why the galaxy needed a human guardian. You see patterns we've forgotten to look for. Marcus nodded, watching the sunset create rainbow cascades through Nexus 7's crystal spires. We humans have a saying. Sometimes you need an outsider's perspective to see your own blind spots. The crisis was over, but Marcus knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, other raiders might lurk. Other threats might emerge. But for now, he had a civilization to help rebuild and a future to help shape. In the gathering dusk, the crystalline cities of Nexus 7 glowed with renewed purpose, human and Nexan technology working in perfect harmony. And at the heart of it all stood Marcus Chen, no longer an accidental guardian, but a chosen protector of a world that bridged the gap between organic and crystal, between tradition and progress, between what was and what could be. The aftermath of the Raider incident brought rapid changes to Nexus 7. Marcus stood in the newly constructed Galactic Assembly, a massive crystalline dome where representatives from across the galaxy could meet with Nexan delegates. After centuries of isolation, the crystal world was finally opening its doors. The Centaurian delegation arrives tomorrow, Clara reported, her mercurial form reflecting the chamber's rainbow light. They're particularly interested in our quantum communications technology. Marcus nodded, reviewing trade proposals on his neural interface. And the Arcturians want to discuss crystal computing partnerships. We're becoming quite popular. Some would say too popular, Syria chimed in, her blue-white crystalline form pulsing with concern. The conservative factions are growing restless again, even with Vextor contained. Before Marcus could respond, alarm crystals throughout the chamber began to pulse red. Guardian. A young Nexan operator materialized, their form flickering with distress. We're detecting multiple quantum breaches in the lower industrial sectors. Security feeds flashed across Marcus's display. The sight made his blood run cold. Workers, both Nexan and visiting alien diplomats, were collapsing, their energy being drained by invisible forces. The crystals around them had turned black, spreading like an infection. It's impossible, Clara whispered. The quantum plague was eradicated millennia ago. Quantum plague? Marcus demanded, already moving toward the emergency response center. Syria kept pace, her form shifting through the crystal walls alongside him. A weapon from the ancient wars, it corrupts crystal matrices, turning them parasitic. Any being touching infected crystal has their energy drained. But there's a cure, right? Marcus reached the response center, where dozens of holographic displays showed the plague's spread. The original cure was lost with the ancient archives, Clara admitted. We thought we'd never need it again. Marcus watched in horror as the infection spread, following Nexus 7's crystal veins like a virus through bloodstreams. Then he noticed something odd. Wait, look at the pattern. It's avoiding certain sectors entirely. He pulled up a complete map of the planet's crystal network. The plague's spread wasn't random, it was methodical, creating what looked almost like it's a containment grid, he realized. Someone's herding everyone into specific zones. As if on cue, a new transmission cut through all channels. The face that appeared was neither Raider nor Nexan, but something worse. A being of pure void, wearing crystalline armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. People of Nexus 7, it spoke in a voice that seemed to freeze the air itself. I am Void Speaker Xelthor, last survivor of the Crystal Dominion. Your world has forgotten us, but we have not forgotten you. Marcus felt Clara and Syria stiffen beside him. The Crystal Dominion, Clara explained quickly. They ruled this sector before the Nexans achieved independence. We thought they'd been extinct for eons. You thought wrong, Xelthor continued. We waited in the void between dimensions, watching you squander our legacy. Now, with your defenses weakened by your foolish opening to the galaxy, we return to reclaim what is ours. The void being's gaze seemed to fix directly on Marcus. Your human guardian cannot save you. The quantum plague is just the beginning. Surrender the crystal heart, or watch your civilization drain away, one crystal at a time. The transmission cut off, leaving a heavy silence. Marcus was already moving, his mind racing. Clara, I need everything you have on the Crystal Dominion. Syria, get me access to the ancient archives. There might be something about the cure we missed. And someone find me a quantum physicist. Hours later, Marcus sat surrounded by historical data and quantum equations. The Crystal Dominion had been masters of dimensional manipulation, using crystal technology not just for energy, but for reality-warping weapons. The quantum plague had been their masterpiece, a self-replicating energy virus that could turn entire worlds into battery farms for their empire. But something wasn't adding up. These energy readings from the infected zones, he muttered. They're not just draining energy, they're storing it. But where's it going? Guardian. A young Nexan scientist materialized, their form excited. We've analyzed the plague's quantum signature. It's not exactly like the historical records. This version has been modified. Marcus leaned forward. Modified how? It's not just corrupting crystals, it's transforming them, creating quantum tunnels to somewhere else. Marcus's eyes widened. They're not trying to drain the planet. They're trying to transport it. He rushed to the main display. Look at the containment pattern again. It's not a grid. It's a giant transmitter array. Understanding dawned on Clara's mercurial face. They're going to try to shift the entire planet into their dimension. With everyone on it, Marcus finished grimly. They don't want to just conquer Nexus 7, they want to absorb it entirely. But this realization sparked something in Marcus's mind. If the plague created quantum tunnels, get me to the crystal heart, he ordered. I have an idea. The heart chamber was one of the few places still untouched by the plague. Marcus approached the massive crystal formation, his mind crystallizing a desperate plan. The plague transforms normal crystals into quantum tunnels, he explained to his companions. But the crystal heart isn't normal crystal. It's pure quantum energy given form. If we can reverse the plague's transformation sequence, we could turn their own weapon against them, Syria finished, her form brightening with hope. Marcus nodded. Better. We can use their quantum tunnels to trap them to their dimension, then send them a little gift. He patted the crystal heart. About 0.1% of this should do it. You want to send them a quantum bomb? Clara asked, impressed. I want to send them a message, Marcus corrected. One written in their own language. Don't mess with forces you don't understand. The next hours were a blur of quantum programming and crystal manipulation. Marcus worked alongside Nexan scientists, combining their ancient knowledge with his human intuition. Finally, everything was ready. Now, Marcus commanded. The crystal heart pulsed with blinding energy. Throughout Nexus 7, infected crystals began to glow. In orbit, space itself seemed to tear open as quantum tunnels activated. For a moment, Marcus caught a glimpse through the dimensional rift, a void realm where crystalline cities floated in eternal darkness. Then the energy pulse hit. The void realm lit up like a supernova, its quantum foundations scrambled by the crystal heart's pure energy. The quantum plague evaporated. Across Nexus 7, blackened crystals returned to their natural state. In the heart chamber, a final transmission cut through. Zelfor's voice, filled with disbelief. How? How did you know? Here's the thing about humans, Marcus replied calmly. We're really good at turning other people's weapons against them. Consider this your first and last warning. Nexus 7 is protected. The transmission died. The crisis was over, but its implications were just beginning to sink in. The galaxy will have heard of this, Clara observed. The Crystal Dominion was legendary. Defeating them makes us a target, Marcus finished. But it also makes us stronger. He gazed out at his adopted world, where crystal spires once again glowed with healthy light. We've proven that isolation isn't safety. Progress isn't weakness. Together, Nexan wisdom and human adaptability can face any threat. As cleanup crews began their work, Marcus Chen, former bored billionaire, now battle-tested guardian, allowed himself a small smile. The Crystal Dominion had waited eons to strike, only to be defeated by something they'd never considered, human ingenuity combined with Nexan knowledge. The galaxy was changing, and Nexus 7 would help shape that change, not through conquest or isolation, but through innovation, cooperation, and the occasional quantum explosion. After all, that's what humanity did best, turn the impossible into the inevitable. 6 months into his guardianship, Marcus found himself in an unprecedented situation. The defeat of the Crystal Dominion had turned Nexus 7 from a hidden wonder into a galactic powerhouse. Delegations from 100 worlds crowded the crystal spires, all seeking alliances, trade deals, and technological exchanges. The Andromedans want exclusive rights to quantum computing interfaces, Marcus muttered, scrolling through proposals. The Pleiades Confederation is offering stellar manipulation technology in exchange for crystal growth techniques. And the Sirius Collective, are they seriously offering an entire Dyson sphere? Our victory has changed the galaxy's perception of us, Clara observed, her mercurial form rippling with amusement, though not all changes are welcome. She was right. Success had brought its own problems. Industrial sectors worked overtime to meet export demands. Cultural exchanges had introduced new ideas that challenged centuries of Nexan tradition. And somewhere in all this chaos, something extraordinary was happening. Guardian. Sidria materialized, her crystalline form vibrating with excitement. You need to see this. The observation chamber she led them to contained something impossible. A young Nexan, barely formed, floated in a containment field. But unlike the pure crystal structures of normal Nexans, this one showed traces of organic matter integrated into its matrix. It's evolving, Marcus breathed, understanding immediately. Contact with other species isn't just changing your culture, it's changing your biology. The first case appeared in the diplomatic quarter, Syria explained. Young Nexans exposed to organic life forms began developing hybrid characteristics. Some can now process organic matter for energy. Others are developing emotional responses similar to biological species. Is it dangerous? Marcus asked, studying the floating youth. Not dangerous, a new voice answered. A tall Nexan emerged from the crystal walls, their form more elaborate than any Marcus had seen. But it is controversial. I am Elvira, head of evolutionary sciences. The council is divided, Clara added. Some see this as the next step in our evolution. Others call it corruption, Elvira finished. They demand we close our borders again, return to isolation. But they don't understand. The process has already begun. We're becoming something new. Marcus watched the young hybrid Nexan, his mind racing with implications. How many? At least 300 confirmed cases, Elvira replied. All in areas with high interspecies contact. The younger generation seems particularly susceptible. Before Marcus could respond, alarm crystals pulsed throughout the facility. Guardian, a security officer materialized. We have multiple breaches in the residential sectors. Armed protesters, they're targeting hybrid Nexans. Security feeds showed chaos. A group of traditionalist Nexans, their forms darkened with rage, was storming through crystal corridors. They used modified energy weapons to shatter hybrid Nexans, claiming to purify their species. This ends now, Marcus growled. He activated his emergency protocols. Clara, get me citywide communications. Syria, evacuate all hybrid Nexans to secure locations. Elvira, I need everything you have on the hybrid biology. There might be a way to protect them. Working quickly, Marcus patched into Nexus 7's crystal network. His voice echoed through every spire and chamber. People of Nexus 7, this is your guardian speaking. What you're witnessing isn't corruption, it's adaptation. The same adaptation that helped your ancestors survive the quantum wars. The same adaptation that helped us defeat the Crystal Dominion. He paused, letting his words sink in. Humanity faced similar fears when we first encountered alien life. We feared change would destroy us. Instead, it made us stronger. Your children aren't becoming less Nexan, they're becoming more. They're becoming the future. The protests paused, but Marcus wasn't done. He activated the city's holographic systems, projecting images of hybrid Nexans across the sky. Look at them. They can interface with organic and crystal technology simultaneously. They can understand emotions in ways pure crystal forms never could. They are the bridge between worlds, just as Nexus 7 has become a bridge between civilizations. In the observation chamber, the young hybrid Nexan began to pulse with new energy. Its crystal structure resonated with Marcus's words, creating patterns of light that spread through the city's crystal network. Other hybrids joined in, their combined energy creating a symphony of light and emotion that touched even the most hardened traditionalists. This is what evolution looks like, Marcus continued, his voice soft but carrying. Not a loss of identity, but an expansion of possibility. I'm your guardian, and I swear to protect all Nexans, pure crystal and hybrid alike. But I can't protect you from your own future, only you can choose to embrace it. The protesters lowered their weapons, many of their forms flickering with uncertainty. In the diplomatic quarter, hybrid Nexans emerged from hiding, their unique forms glowing with pride rather than shame. Elvira approached Marcus, her elaborate form shimmering with approval. You understand what this means. The implications for our species. Marcus nodded. It means Nexus 7 isn't just a crossroads of trade anymore. It's becoming a crucible of evolution, a place where the boundaries between organic and crystal, between emotion and logic, between past and future, they're all breaking down. And you're not afraid? Clara asked softly. This change could remake our entire civilization. Marcus smiled, watching the young hybrid Nexan practice, changing its structure, shifting between crystal and semi-organic forms with growing confidence. Change is what humans do best. We adapt, we evolve, we transform. Now you're doing the same thing in your own unique way. That's not something to fear, it's something to celebrate. As the crisis subsided, Marcus found himself in his private chambers, looking out at the crystal cities he'd come to call home. The spires glowed with new colors now, organic patterns weaving through traditional crystal structures. Hybrid nexons floated among pure crystal forms, their differences no longer a source of conflict, but a symbol of possibility. He'd come to this world by accident, bought it on a whim. Now he was witnessing, and helping guide, the birth of an entirely new form of life. The merger of crystal precision with organic adaptability, of ancient wisdom with evolutionary potential. Guardian, Syria called softly. The Galactic Council is requesting an emergency session. They want to discuss the implications of nexon evolution. Marcus straightened his jacket, ready to face whatever came next. After all, he wasn't just a guardian anymore. He was a midwife to the future, a bridge between worlds, and a protector of possibility itself. Tell them, he said with a smile, that evolution doesn't wait for committee approval, but we're happy to discuss how to make the most of it. The crystal spires of Nexus 7 pulsed in agreement, their light reaching up toward the stars, no longer as distant observers, but as active participants in the great dance of cosmic evolution. 1 year after his impulsive auction bid, Marcus Chen stood before the Galactic Council. The vast chamber on New Earth held representatives from 1,000 worlds, all gathered to discuss what many were calling the Nexus Revolution, the unprecedented merger of crystal and organic life. The implications are staggering, the Andromedan representative was saying, their plasma forms swirling with excitement. If this hybrid evolution can be replicated— It cannot be replicated, Marcus interrupted firmly. The nexon transformation is unique to their biology and environment. This isn't a technology to be copied, it's a natural evolution to be respected. But even as he defended his adopted people's sovereignty, Marcus knew bigger challenges were looming. His quantum sensors had detected something massive approaching nexon space, something that defied conventional physics. The emergency alert came during his closing statement to the council. Guardian, Clara's voice held barely contained panic. They're here. Marcus didn't need to ask who they were. The beings that had haunted Nexon legends for millennia. The crystalline architects, the original creators of the Nexons themselves. Their ship appeared above Nexus 7 like a fractal nightmare made real, a structure that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its crystalline surface constantly shifting and rebuilding itself. Beside it, even the most advanced Nexon spires looked primitive. Children of our design, a voice echoed through every crystal on the planet. We have returned to evaluate our experiment. Marcus rushed back to Nexus 7 aboard Fortune's Folly, his mind racing. The architects were supposed to be myths, godlike beings who had seeded crystal life forms throughout the galaxy before vanishing into higher dimensions. He arrived to find Nexus 7 in chaos. The architects had deployed massive scanning arrays, their energy patterns disrupting the planet's crystal networks. But worse was their reaction to the hybrid nexons. Contamination, their voice boomed. The experiment is compromised. Organic corruption must be purged. Marcus found Clara and Syria coordinating evacuations of hybrid citizens. How bad is it? He asked, though the crystalline tears on Syria's face answered his question. They're shutting down entire sections of the city, Clara reported. Any crystal matrix showing organic integration is being systematically erased. They call themselves our creators, Syria added bitterly. But they treat us like failed prototypes. Marcus watched a group of hybrid children being rushed to shelter, their forms flickering between crystal and organic states in fear. Something inside him hardened. No, he declared, they don't get to play God with your evolution. He activated his neural interface, connecting to Nexus 7's core systems. Get me Elvira and every quantum physicist we have. If the architects want to evaluate their experiment, let's show them just how far their children have evolved. The next hours were a blur of preparation. While the architects methodically worked their way through the city, Marcus and his team raced to implement his desperate plan. The crystal heart, he explained to his assembled advisors, isn't just an energy source. It's a quantum computer of unprecedented power. And thanks to our hybrid citizens, it's learned to process organic patterns. What are you suggesting? Elvira asked, her elaborate form shifting with interest. Marcus grinned. I'm suggesting we show the architects what happens when you combine crystal precision with human creativity. Clara, remember how we defeated the Crystal Dominion? This time, we're going bigger. Understanding dawned on their faces. The crystal heart had evolved along with its people, developing new capabilities that merged quantum computing with organic intuition. It wasn't just a power source anymore, it was a new form of consciousness. As the architect's ships approached the central spire, Marcus put his plan into action. The crystal heart pulsed with unprecedented energy, but this time it wasn't just raw power, it was information. The combined experiences, emotions, and evolution of every Nexan, pure and hybrid alike, broadcast directly into the architect's consciousness. The effect was immediate and stunning. The architect's ship froze, its dimensional shifting disrupted by the flood of data. Through their connection to the crystal networks, they experienced everything: the fear and wonder of first contact with organic life, the pain and joy of transformation, the birth of new forms of existence they had never imagined possible. This is impossible. The architect's voice wavered. Our design was perfect. Pure crystal consciousness, untainted by organic chaos. Your design was a beginning, not an end, Marcus replied, his voice carrying through every crystal on Nexus 7. You created beings capable of growth, of change, of evolution. What did you expect would happen when they encountered new forms of life? Did you think they would stay frozen in your image forever? The hybrid children Marcus had seen earlier emerged from shelter, their forms now stable, perfect mergers of crystal precision and organic adaptability. They approached the architect's energy projections without fear, their very existence a testament to life's endless capacity for transformation. Look at them, Marcus continued. They're not a contamination of your experiment, they're its ultimate success. They've transcended the limitations you built into their ancestors. They've become something new, something even you couldn't imagine. For the first time in recorded history, the architects were silent. Their ship's dimensional shifting slowed, then stabilized, as if they were finally fully present in one reality. Perhaps they finally responded, their voice holding something new. Uncertainty, we have been absent too long. Our children have indeed grown beyond our expectations. The cleaning protocols ceased. The scanning arrays withdrew. Above Nexus 7, the architect's ship began to change, its rigid crystalline structure incorporating organic patterns in a mirror of the evolution they had witnessed. We came to evaluate our experiment, they announced. Instead, we find ourselves being taught by it. Guardian Chen, your species' influence was unexpected, but perhaps not unwelcome. As the architects departed, promising to return as learners rather than judges, Marcus found himself surrounded by his adopted family. Clara's mercurial form rippled with relief, Siria's crystals chimed with joy, and the hybrid children danced through the air, their forms shifting in celebration. You know, Marcus said thoughtfully, watching the last dimensional ripples of the architect's departure, when I bought this planet, I thought I was getting a simple real estate deal. Instead, I got front row seats to the next stage of evolution. And how does it feel? Clara asked, being the guardian of a species that just proved their own creators wrong. Marcus laughed, reaching out to catch a floating hybrid child who had spun too enthusiastically. It feels like home. Above them, the crystal spires of Nexus 7 pulsed with new light, not just the pure radiance of their original design, but with swirling patterns of organic energy, creating something more beautiful than either form could achieve alone. It was a testament to the truth Marcus had learned over the past year. The future belongs not to those who cling to purity, but to those who dare to embrace change. And somewhere in the quantum networks that connected every crystal on Nexus 7, a new consciousness was awakening, one that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of life itself. 5 years after his impulsive auction bid, Marcus Chen stood in the newly constructed Evolution Spire, a towering crystal structure that merged organic and crystalline architecture in ways that still took his breath away. The spire served as both a symbol and a functional center of Nexus 7's transformation, housing research facilities, cultural exchanges, and most importantly, the first generation of fully integrated hybrid Nexans. Thinking deep thoughts, Guardian, Clara materialized beside him, her mercurial form now permanently infused with traces of organic patterns, a change she'd finally embraced after the architect's departure. Just reflecting, Marcus replied, watching young Nexans practice shifting between crystal and organic forms in the training chamber below. 5 years ago, I was a bored billionaire looking for entertainment. Now you were guardian of an evolutionary revolution, Sigria completed, her crystalline form shimmering with pride. She'd become the head of the new Hybrid Integration Council, helping both pure crystal and hybrid Nexans navigate their changing society. The changes went far beyond biology. Nexus 7 had become the galaxy's premier center for quantum organic research. The hybrid Nexans' unique ability to interface with both crystal technology and organic life had led to breakthroughs in medicine, computing, and space travel. Ships now incorporated living crystal tech, allowing for faster-than-light travel without the usual physical limitations. But success, as always, brought new challenges. Guardian, Elvira's voice carried urgency as she materialized. The quantum sensors have detected something unprecedented. Marcus followed her to the observation deck. The holographic displays showed a phenomenon he'd never seen before, a massive quantum disturbance approaching Nexus 7, larger than anything since the architect's visit. Analysis, he asked, already activating emergency protocols. It's everything, Elvira replied, her elaborate form pulsing with confusion. Quantum signatures matching the raiders, the Crystal Dominion, the architects, and dozens of others we don't recognize. They're all converging on our position. A united attack? Clara wondered, but Marcus shook his head. No, this is something else. He'd learned to trust his human intuition, especially when it came to unprecedented situations. This is a response to what we've created here. He was right. As the quantum disturbance reached Nexus 7's orbit, it resolved into hundreds of ships, representatives from every crystal-based civilization in the known galaxy, and some from beyond it. Their message was simple: they had come to witness the next step. The hybrid evolution wasn't just a local phenomenon, Marcus realized as reports flooded in. Crystal-based life forms across the galaxy are changing, adapting, merging with organic patterns. We're not just changing Nexan society, we're changing the fundamental nature of crystal consciousness itself. The Evolution Spire became the center of a grand gathering. Crystal beings of all forms and origins shared their experiences of change. Some feared it, others embraced it, but all recognized that there was no going back. The rigid separation between crystal and organic life was dissolving across the cosmos. It was during this historic gathering that the crystal heart of Nexus 7 did something unexpected. Its quantum pulses, which had been steadily evolving over the years, suddenly synchronized with every crystal structure on the planet. The hybrid Nexans felt it first, a new level of consciousness emerging, a merger of crystal precision and organic intuition on a planetary scale. The heart, Sigria gasped, it's awakening. Through the crystal networks, Marcus and every being on Nexus 7 experienced it, the birth of a new form of awareness. The crystal heart had evolved beyond its original purpose, becoming a bridge between dimensional planes, between forms of life, between past and future. Marcus found himself standing in a space that was both physical and quantum, surrounded by representatives of crystal civilizations from across the galaxy. The crystal heart's consciousness touched them all, sharing the truth it had discovered. Evolution wasn't a linear path from simple to complex, from crystal to organic, or vice versa. It was a dance of infinite possibility, a continuous exploration of what life could become. This, Marcus addressed the gathered beings, his voice carrying through quantum space, is what we've been working toward, even if we didn't know it. Not the dominance of one form of life over another, but the discovery of what we can become together. The young hybrid Nexans demonstrated this truth with beautiful clarity. They moved through multiple states of being, crystal, organic, and everything in between, with a grace that made the traditional divisions seem arbitrary. They were the living embodiment of change, of adaptation, of possibility. As the gathering concluded, decisions were made that would reshape the galaxy. Nexus 7 would become the center of a new era of evolution, sharing its discoveries while respecting each civilization's right to change at its own pace. The Crystal Heart's awakened consciousness would serve not as a ruler, but as a guide for those exploring the frontiers of existence. Marcus found himself in his private chambers that evening, watching the sunset create rainbow cascades through the crystal spires. Clara, Syria, and Elvira joined him, his closest advisors, his friends, his family. "Did you ever imagine," Clara asked, "when you raised that bidding token at the auction, that you'd end up helping guide the evolution of an entire form of life?" Marcus laughed. "I was just trying to prove a point to a smug alien. But that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Life takes us in directions we never expect, shows us possibilities we never imagined." Through the crystal networks, he could feel the pulse of his adopted world, the steady rhythm of the Crystal Heart, the dynamic energy of hybrid communities, the elegant mathematics of pure crystal structures, all working in harmony. Nexus 7 had become more than a planet. It was a living symbol of life's endless capacity for transformation. "The architects created the Nexans to be perfect," Syria observed, "unchanging and pure. Instead, they became the catalyst for universal change." "Because perfection isn't about staying the same," Marcus replied. "It's about having the courage to become something new." As night fell over Nexus 7, the crystal spires lit up with bioluminescent patterns, another beautiful merger of organic and crystal qualities. In training chambers, young hybrids practiced their transformations. In research labs, breakthroughs were being made in quantum organic technology. In cultural centers, traditions were being preserved even as they evolved. And at the heart of it all stood Marcus Chen, no longer the bored billionaire seeking entertainment, but the guardian of a world that had transformed him as much as he had helped transform it. He had come seeking an escape from mundane success and found instead a front-row seat to the next chapter in the story of life itself. The Crystal Heart pulsed with contentment, its awakened consciousness touching every being on Nexus 7 with a simple truth: the greatest adventures aren't about reaching a destination, but about embracing the journey of becoming. In the end, that was what both humanity and the Nexans had taught each other, that the future belongs to those brave enough to imagine it, adaptable enough to embrace it, and wise enough to share it. As the first stars appeared in the crystal-clear sky above Nexus 7, Marcus smiled. His accidental empire had become something far greater, a beacon of possibility for all forms of life, a testament to the power of change, and a promise that the greatest chapters in the story of existence were still waiting to be written. The adventure, as always, was just beginning.